As a preacher, a major part of my job is to be a teacher. And for anyone who's ever taught before, there's just moments when you're teaching someone that just change your life, that just inspire you, that just make you think, I'm doing the right thing. It's that moment when you're teaching and you just see that light bulb go off. And then you just see them, they go, I get it. I understand. You know, this last week, I had one of those moments. I got to meet a nice guy named Joe, and we got together during the week. And as we were spending some time together, I was like, hey, Joe, I would like to have a Bible study with you sometime. And he's like, hey, how about today? And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And as we were studying, we had our Bibles open and we were studying, and as I was going through just teaching him about Jesus, teaching him about all these different things about what Christ has done, about grace and forgiveness and how we're sinners and we need Jesus Christ, I just saw in his eyes just the light bulbs were going off and he was answering everything correct. And I was just like, wow, he's really smart, but he's getting it. He's getting the fact that Jesus died for his sins. He gets that he needs a Savior. He gets it. And the more he understood God's character and his grace, the more he was just excited for God. And he made the comment saying, you know what, I've done the religious thing before and I've just went through the motions, but today I want to do it for me. And he got baptized into Christ, and that was an exciting thing. And I don't know if you met Joe yet, but he's such a great guy, and I just think, you know what, God really has a huge sense of humor. Because God keeps on sending giants for me to baptize. We got like Kurt and Steve and Joe, and they're like twice my size. It's like an Oompa Loompa baptizing Willy Wonka. It's just like, it was really bad. And I was just, he was so cooperative. I had to actually baptize, try to do it because I was not having the best time the first time around. But I was just so excited. And when I saw his face as he came out of the water, he was smiling and he was excited. It was at that point I realized this is why I do what I do. And it's so exciting because he finally understood something about God and his character and his nature so much that he made the decision, I want God, I want Christ to be my Savior. I want him to be my Lord. And I look at people like Joe and I just admire the humility it takes to confess that, to humble himself. See, one of the things that really just impresses me every time I do a Bible study is just I fall back in love with God. Because I realize, you know what, this is really what God has done for me. And I kept on asking myself, why would a God, the creator of the universe, who's perfect and holy and righteous in all that he does, actually care enough about me? One who has hated him, one who has sinned against him, one who has profaned him. Why would he be willing to do what he has done? And the whole time I was thinking about that, the only reason why he would be willing to do what he did is because of his character. It's because of who he is. And the thing is, we as people, we tend to do what we believe. We tend to do the things that emulate who we really are. And so one of the things I realized about God is this is a God who loved us and sacrificed his son Jesus for us because that's simply who he is. Who he is by character mandated him and changed and caused him to say, you know what, I want to save these people who I created. I remember when I was in grade school, I had to read this Greek mythology book. And as I was reading this Greek mythology book, I just kept on learning about all these false gods that these Greek people would worship and sacrifice to, and they would just do all these sinful acts, and they would give up their children. And the whole time I was just reading through that book, just thinking, you know what, people in human history actually worship these people. And the thing that really just caught my attention was how greedy and angry and unjust and selfish and immoral these Greek gods were. And I just thought about that and just thought, you know what? These are gods that I would be excited to worship. And so one of the things that I did was, this actually spurred me to actually go on this spiritual journey where I actually studied a lot of different religions. I started to study who's this religious person? Who is this person that they're proclaiming to be a god? And why do they worship him? And the thing that I realized as I was studying through all these different religions was that so many of these gods were ones that I wouldn't be glad to worship. That so many of them were angry or immoral or hateful and unjust that you just think, you know what, they're ones that are just so cruel. But that's one of the things that really caused me to fall in love with Jesus Christ. I asked myself, what really sets apart Jesus from all these other false gods? Other than the fact that God is real and these ones were made by human people, and not the reason why they're evil is because they originated from the hearts of evil people, so that doesn't surprise us. But one of the things that separates them is this understanding that Jesus Christ has character, that God has character, and that he had a heart for us. When all these other religions are all about themselves, and the gods were saying, you know what, I want you to sacrifice for me to appease my lust, and my bloodthirst, and my just desire just to be immoral. Because that's what they did. You even read in the Old Testament about the Ashtaroths and the Chemoshes and the Daons, and all these people throughout human history would sacrifice their children, and they would do sexual immorality. They did all these sinful acts, all because they thought that was worship to these immoral false gods, that that's what they wanted. That all of it was about appeasing these unjust, angry, vengeful gods and sacrificing to them and hoping that they will be saved by their own goodness and their own works, by not offending them. But when I read the Bible, I get a different picture of the God that we serve. Because yes, God requires sacrifice. God requires us to humble ourselves and submit to him fully. But as I read through the Bible, one of the things that really sets apart God from the other all these false gods, is that the greatest sacrifice is not by the ones who are worshipers, but the greatest sacrifice was done by the one who is worshipped. And I just thought the reason why I'm so grateful to God is because he had the character to save me. And one of the things that I think about is in all these different religions, all these religions really base salvation and a relationship with God based on our own goodness, our own character, our own works. And the whole time I was reading through all these different religions, as I was going through studying all of them, I was thinking, you know what, if it's based on who I am, if it's based on what I have done, if it's based on my character, there's no hope for me. Because we all know ourselves. We know our baggage, we know our sin. But the thing is, it's not based on us. It's based on the character of God. And God's character is one that Gary read. And in fact, this was the character that God made known to Moses, and is probably the most quoted description of God throughout the scriptures, because it's quoted over and over and over again in the Old and New Testament. That God is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in love and faithfulness. That's the God we serve. That's a God of character. And I just think that is why he was willing to give us grace. That is why we are able to celebrate. This is why when we worship God, we don't worship out of this anger, this fearfulness, in the sense of saying, you know what, he's going to destroy my crops because he's just bloodthirsty for my soul. But it's a God who says we're glad to worship him because he paid atonement for us by sacrificing Jesus to die on the cross for my sins, even though I didn't deserve it. You see, that's what sets apart Christianity from any other religion, is this concept of grace. All the other religions say it's based on how good you are and what you do. But Christianity is different because it's based on who he is and what he has done. And it's based on his grace. When I think about character, I often think, you know what? Character is actually what really mandates what we do in our lives. I mean, if you have no respect for truth, you're going to lie. If you're a greedy person, you're going to prioritize money over helping people. If your character is one of rage, you're going to look for a quarrel and a complaint and an argument. But if your character is one that's like compassionate, you'll be so moved to help other people that you will sacrifice and do what is necessary. If you